Well, again, I'm Jeff. I am the co-founder of an app called Bettor Vision, and I live in Chicago.
Hi, I'm Brett. I am the other co-founder of Bettor Vision. I'm from the Baltimore area.
I am Mikey. I am the founder of Basement Brewed Fantasy Football over in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Spot a cow at my booth if anybody's interested.
Which you should definitely go because there's booze there too. So let's focus on the priorities. Essentially, thanks for making the time. I'm having a bunch of fun at this conference so far, and what we wanted to talk about today was essentially the evolution of the industry and how exciting it is to be in the fantasy sports industry right now. I think that if we're going to talk about the evolution, it makes the most sense to start at the beginning. And I was going to ask you guys to tell us, actually before we get into that, your journey, let's give the folks what they want. Who is the player that you have the most exposure to this year?
My guy is Zay Flowers of the Ravens. I also have a lot of exposure to Isaiah Likely, who I always try to pick up late in the round. It's like, a little bit of standalone value, and also the Mark Andrews ever get hurt, he's a top 5 tight end. So yeah.
For me, it's Jonathan Taylor. Just kidding. That's not going well yet. You asked me that right before we started this, and I looked back at my highest exposure, and I think the number one is Kadarius Toney, Chiefs wide receiver. I think he's being drafted way lower than he should be for the upside that he brings to the table. Now, I know there's injury concerns there. Can't really stay on the field, it seems like, and he's hurt, but he is supposed to be back week 1, and the upside that he has with the way that Kansas City wants to use him he should be drafted much higher than he currently is, for sure.
I love that one. He's absolutely fantastic, and if he can get over that injury and get that number 1 spot in that offense, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Well, awesome. Well, if we're going to start at the beginning and talk about it, like how did you guys get into fantasy? What was your introduction to it? And just talk about what these first few years were like, and then we'll get into what's happened lately.
So for me, I grew up in the Baltimore area, and then after high school went to West Point. And as I moved around, I was in the Army for 20 years. As I moved around, what kept me connected to my buddies back home, what kept me connected to my fellow college classmates, to Army buddies as I moved from post to post. I was moving every 2 years on average, was fantasy football. So I'd join a league and I'd stay with those guys, and I'd start a new league with my new guys, and all of a sudden, after 10 years or so, I'm in like 8 different leagues, 4 different platforms. Then daily fantasy came along. So I joined DraftKings and FanDuel, started playing on those. And then I was living in Chicago in 2019, and sports betting got legalized there. And, deposit $100, get $500 in free bets. I like free money. So I downloaded all of them, and I had 5 sports betting accounts. It was a very overwhelming kind of experience. But now I think last year I was in 22 leagues across 7 different platforms. It was fun. It was great. It's sometimes tough to manage, though.
Yeah, man. So for me, it actually I wouldn't say my first fantasy league was way back when, but when I was like 7, 8 years old, that's when the obsession for football was born. I don't know if anybody remembers those football pencils from way back in the day. Do you remember those? I would line up all 30, not 32 back then, 30 teams, and I would grab 2 of them, spin them in my hands, close my eyes, and drop one. And whichever one I dropped was the losing team. Whichever one I was holding, that was the winning team. And I would keep notebooks of seasons and seasons and seasons of this. So needless to say, football, it's been an obsession for me for a long time. My first fantasy league, I was about 18 years old. It was 2006. And oh my God, an obsession
Over at that point
was born from there for the rest. And, before you know it, I did this March Madness style league where there's 64 teams and a 64 team bracket, and vampire leagues and guillotines and best balls and FanDuel. Like, if there's fantasy football, I want to play it. And currently today, I'm in about 200 plus best balls every year, and even that's on multiple apps. I'm on Underdog, I'm on Drafters, I'm on MFL 10s, so I'm all over the place there. And then I do anywhere between 10 to 20 what I like to call maintenance leagues, where you have to maintain your team, but it's keeper leagues, dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, vampire leagues, which are a lot of fun. So yeah, man, I'm all over the place between my fantasy league, Yahoo, ESPN. Like, it's It's all over the place.
It's, and again, not that uncommon based on who's here. It's a very common experience. I myself did the same thing. Start with regular fantasy, then DFS, and sports betting. You mentioned best ball, and I think that was like the very kind of, you started with the MFL 10s. You guys remember those? And then we had obviously the Millie Makers on Underdog. Has really, like, there's no off season anymore right now. The off season is just best ball leagues. How has that impacted your relationship or engagement with regular fantasy?
I think it's allowed me to play year round, right? Like before, I was very committed. Obviously, August and September were very busy times, and then the rest of football season was busy. But now, from March through July, I'm drafting probably once a week, at least, sometimes more, a team because I want to practice. I'm excited. I think I know more than other people, kind of thing, like most of us. And so it's made it more year round. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, I was just looking at my phone. I literally have like 30 plus drafts going right now because like that's what best ball has done to me. It's made the obsession worse in a good way, or maybe the other way around. But yeah, man, it's the same kind of thing Brett said. It's always funny because I get people that are like, "Oh, how many fantasy leagues are you in?" And I'm like, like 400 plus," and they're like, "Doesn't really count because it's best ball." But yeah, man, to me a lot of like what Brett said, right? You're drafting from March up until August, and if I'm being honest, I'm just doing it because I love drafting. That's my favorite part of fantasy football. It's my favorite format of league because I don't like messing around with waivers all the time. I want to do best ball, but other than that, come August, you're ready to roll. You know exactly where guys are drafted, where the values are going to be, and you're coming up against, maybe some home leagues, and you're playing against people that only play in like one or two leagues, and you're like, you drafted Jonathan Taylor way too early,
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that, so it really, that was the first sort of innovative product for me that I was like, fantasy football is changing. Sort of fundamentally, everything's getting different. Are there any other leagues, formats that you guys have found over the years that you thought of like really interesting or compelling and unique that have really moved the needle?
I mean, I'm probably late to the game here, but my favorite 3 leagues last year were on Guillotine League. We did a Guillotine regular chop, we did a Guillotine super chop, we did a zombie league, and it was electric, right? Like it just, the energy and the excitement every week of like, are we going to get cut? And then deciding who you were going to pick up off the waiver wire and be like, oh my God, Justin Jefferson's available. Like this is awesome. So that was a lot of fun for me and new.
Yeah, so I've been recently getting into vampire leagues, and for anybody who's not familiar with those, it's you get 12 teams in a league, 11 people draft, 1 person does not. That's the quote-unquote vampire. They have to make their team of the waiver wire, just whatever scraps are left. But if they eventually beat a team, they can steal any player they want from that team. I did my first one last year, and it was a ton of fun. I ended up losing in the championship game as the vampire. But, man, I am super hooked on those leagues now, for sure.
I love those leagues. So I found the Guillotine leagues to be absolutely electric. That was just very, really fun. And like, again, not a complete refresh on the fantasy football experience, but taking a slightly different angle on it to make things more compelling. So we've ran through all these fantasy leagues. How many apps do you guys have to manage all those? And we'll include DFS in that as well.
I think 17 between fantasy, daily fantasy, and sports betting.
As in no way pathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm literally looking at my phone. I have a folder for fantasy football that goes a couple pages over. I mean, and there's a couple things there. There's playing, right? Playing fantasy football, Yahoo, my fantasy league. But then there's also like analysis or news or whatever, the content, right? So I'd say when it comes to playing the game, though, I'm probably 11 or 12 apps every day, which is just stupid. It's stupid.
It's It's ridiculous. I mean, my joke is I've 2 young kids, which is essentially fancy talk for no social life or free time. I just go to the bar, and I was in so many leagues. It was negatively impacting my experience when I was there. I had 3 hours to be a fan, and it was terrible. The other bogey out there that has really changed the complexion of the fantasy industry is when sports betting was introduced. Hands up, the people live in states where sports betting is legal? Perfect. So, Brett, you touched on that briefly and how many apps you have. What was that like to manage those things?
Yeah. So when it first started, I was probably betting about $100 a day, nothing big, 10 and $20 bets, small units, um, and it wasn't too overwhelming. And then I happened to hit a 10-team parlay, won like 10 grand early that football season. I withdrew about half of that, and then left the rest in as house money. And all of a sudden, now I was betting $1,000 a day, but still at 10 and $20 bets. So I'd have 50, 60 bets out there, and it was overwhelming, right? Like the apps didn't even have basic sort and filter functions, right? I couldn't like sort just for football, just bets that I have today based on upcoming games. They just chronologically listed your bets from when you placed it. It was just terrible. So I built these massive spreadsheets. So every Saturday and Sunday morning, I'd get up early and start making all my bets and then entering it in this spreadsheet. And I'd have every game that was coming up that day down the side and every fantasy contest, daily fantasy contest, bet, parlay, teaser, whatever, across the top. And I would track along the day. I'd be like, oh, scratch that out, I lost, circle that, I won, because I was doing a lot of parlays and teasers, especially after the big win. And it was terrible. And honestly, I think when I realized it got bad was when I realized I was on both sides of a game.
That was awesome. That's actually true. He bet the same side of both sides of a game.
Yeah, not a good way to win money. It's a good way to burn money. Yeah. So it was terrible.
Yeah, you bring up spreadsheets. That's a really good point. We didn't even talk about that when we're talking about like managing multiple apps. Like and whiteboards, by the way. I have a whiteboard sitting right next to my desk where it's like, which league is this again? Oh, that's on my fantasy league. Okay, I got to check that out. So spreadsheets. But as far as betting goes, so I'm in Wisconsin, still illegal. So my exposure to betting is not quite as much as it probably would be if I had the chance. But I will say, anytime, like the other day, a couple weeks back, we were at O'Hare getting ready to board a flight, and I'm in Illinois. I'm like, FanDuel, I'm trying to find all these bets. I'm like, Josh Allen over, Lamar Jackson over. So, yeah, the betting that I have done has been on FanDuel Sportsbook, and that's pretty much it. I've gone on like MGM and a couple of the other ones, but there's really not too much that I can do in Wisconsin yet. Hopefully that changes pretty soon.
It's a really interesting time in the relationship between DFS and sports betting right now, especially in Ohio, which is really cool. They're the ones taking active steps to prevent that pick'em, we're calling it. Like the difference between pick'em and prop bets, I don't really know what the difference is. How do you guys think that is going to play out?
Actually had an interesting conversation about this with Stacey Stern from Underdog on Friday night. The law currently as written seems very clear. It falls under game of skill. As long as you've got game of skill versus game of chance, it involves multiple players, it's aggregated stats. It seems like it should be a fantasy product, but there are very similar products that the sports books offer as well. And I think that's where it gets really hard for the Gaming Commission, and it gives that kind of opening for the DraftKings and the FanDuels of the world to come try to shut down their potential competitors in Underdog and fantasy. Okay.
Yeah, no, I find it to be absolutely fascinating because they are truly the DFS companies skirting a major issue. It's very smart that they're going around, and I can see why the sportsbook want to stop that because it's clearly out money out of their pockets. But just really, really cool. So how many in total apps do we have now? I know we've said the fantasy at about 17. I know you got yours covered. How many more apps do you have in total?
Oh, sorry. So I was wrong before. Just fantasy is 13. Oh, I guess daily fantasy and daily fantasy is 17. So 13 for daily fantasy, and then 6 sports betting apps. So 23.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. So clearly what we're trying to get at here is the industry has evolved to the point where there's so many compelling products out there that people have far too many apps on their phone, and no one is doing anything to really tie it all together. So, Brett, I'm going to ask you a question about the product that we built called Bettor Vision. How does that aggregation benefit you?
I mean, it saves me a ton of time, right? I mean, we built the product because we were solving our own pain points. I hated not being able to see everything in one place. I used Mint as my financial aggregator. It pulled all my finances into one place. If I'm going to travel, I use Kayak or Expedia. I use an aggregator to make sure I'm getting the best prices. And I didn't understand why that didn't exist in this industry. So I wanted to be able to see everything in one place. I wanted to, when I'm watching the game, and a touchdown score, there's a big play, I want to look down, see how it affects all my bets and my fantasy scores, and look back without missing a play. Before, I was scrolling through 11, 12 different apps, and I look up and I've missed 2 minutes of game time. So it's really about saving time for me personally.
Not even saving time. I would also say like the accuracy of everything. Like you don't want to miss anything. Like last year was the first time I accidentally forgot to set a lineup in one of my fantasy leagues, and it was the worst day of my life. Like it haunted me for the whole rest of the week. So the idea of having everything under one roof and one umbrella is, I mean, you're like you said, you're seeing it all over in all these other industries. So like, why wouldn't it be here? Where, I mean, we're literally at an event where people are obsessed with these games. You know, everybody here is in dozens of leagues, making plenty of bets, playing all the DFS. Why would it not be under one roof? You know, so much needed.
Absolutely. And for me, the thing that I like best about it is the price comparison tool that we have as far as odds go. I am a god-awful bettor. It's just pathetic how bad I am considering how much time I watch fantasy. And by eliminating and scrubbing through and just showing where the best odds are, I can at least say that I made a terrible bet, but got the best value. And best case scenario is my friend makes the same bet and doesn't get the odds, and I win over him. So it's really a bragging thing for me. It's that community piece. Speaking of community, I mean, we talk every Sunday morning about who to start. How are we going to try and make that better with Bettor Vision?
Yeah. So I assume a lot of you also have text chains or WhatsApps or Facebook groups or Twitter groups where you're talking about what bets you're making, what bets you think you might want to do, what lineups you're submitting, start-sit decisions. I've got probably 9 or 10 of those with a couple different groups with a lot of weird little overlaps. And it's kind of frustrating to like try to think, okay, who do I need to send this to? So in our community section, we decided we wanted to bring that into the product as well. If you're already friends with these guys, if you're on the apps together, you're in these leagues together, automatically showing all the bets that I'm making. We created the polls so that I can ask a question on a bet that I'm thinking about making, or I can have start sit. I've got these 3 players. I need to start one, flex one, and have them kind of do it asynchronously, kind of like Slack. For this industry.
No, I hate it. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'd say not much any different than Brett said. I'd say the one that was in there that I've been big on that we've had going on a lot lately is Discord. But even then, it's like there's 7 different Discord channels. You know what I mean? So and yeah, WhatsApp, GroupMe is a big one. We're still like hanging out on GroupMe, just individual text messages. It's all over the place. And like you said, sometimes it's like I can't even remember who I messaged about what because a lot of these, like I play fantasy in a lot of different leagues but with the same guys, so it'll be like, hey, I sent you a trade, and I'll send that on GroupMe or I'll send that over on WhatsApp, and it's all over the place. Doesn't make any sense.
I love it. So with regard to the I want to talk about the hedging tool that you're going to build. In your beautiful mind over there, you've come up with this. Talk about the process of your parlays that you make and how you handle hedging at the last second to lock in some sort of profit.
So I'm kind of addicted to parlays, and I know they're dumb, but it's fun, and I've hit a couple big ones, so I can still kind of justify it to myself.
Should you talk about the big one that you hit?
So there was the one $10,000 one we talked about before. January of 2020, I hit a 15-team basketball parlay, so $30 was won $103,000. And I've been chasing that high ever since. You know, it's like, you know,
worst thing that could have happened here.
Yeah, worst thing. So I make a big 15-team parlay bet every day and lose all the time. But like last night, we bet. I think we did an 18 parlay, and we hit 7 legs last night. We're waiting on the Saints money line hits that we win. And at the end of the first quarter, Saints were up 14-0. Chiefs were plus 550. We had made a $10 bet it was going to win $750. So I'm like, oh, what? I could bet $100 right now on the Chiefs at plus 550, and no matter what happens, I'm going to win $550, right? One chance I might win 550, the other one I'll win like 610. It's not a perfect hedge, but we could figure that out. What sucks right now is your kind of only options, especially for the big ones, is a cash out, right? Like you see these big bets being shared on Bleacher Report betting or DraftKings. They love to share these huge America's bets that everybody's following along, to try to get more people to do them. But if you get close, your only option is a cash out, right? Which is usually a 5 or 6% discount on a perfect hedge. What I would love is to partially hedge, right? But if I'm about to hit a $100,000 win, I don't have $50,000 to drop on the other side of that game, or $20,000 or whatever it would take. So I'm like, what if I could cash out a part of it, and still have a lot of upside, right? Like, nobody wants to cash out. It seems like you're second
Coward.
guessing. Yeah, a cowardly move. I don't want to say it, but you're second guessing yourself. Have confidence. You made that bet. Go with it. But at the same time, it'd be nice to guarantee some win. So we want to build this tool, this hedging tool, where it's a slider, and as you get closer, usually where there's 1 or 2 games left, and then you can calculate the probabilities to hedge. You can decide how much you want to hedge it, from no hedge up to perfect hedge, or anywhere in between. So you can get a partial. I'm going to cash out 15% of it, but I'm still going to have 80-something% upside.
I love that, man. Yeah, exactly. With the non-sports betting, no, I think it's fascinating because by winning 7 of 8, you've put yourself in a situation that you should be able to get something back. You've earned the right to get something home, and by locking in some sort of profits, that seems like the reasonable thing to do, despite the fact that you are maybe taking a little less and looking like a coward. But you put yourself in a position to get something, and it should be, instead of going all or nothing, you deserve something. And I think that there is a similar statement about fantasy in general. One of the things that we're really trying to capitalize on is these cross-vertical hedging opportunities, where if you're, say you're on Monday night and you're going against Josh Allen and you are down 15 points, there's some sort of player prop bet that you can make to either guarantee your victory in fantasy or guarantee your victory in the bet. And the fantasy matchup is a sunk cost. You've already paid for that. So locking in some sort of profit is really what we're trying to do. And it's just analyzing a full player's portfolio of activity. Make sense? Yeah. So essentially, would you rather see that as a push notification or something that pops up in the app itself from the experience?
I don't know yet. I'm thinking probably push notification, just in case obviously I want people to use Bettor Vision as a second screen while they're watching the game, and so they're always looking down at the dashboard. And so if that's the case, then in app I'd prefer, but in case they're not using it as a second screen, push notification probably helps them, and really what I want to do is help them with opportunities. So push probably makes more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually really like the idea of a push notification on those, like the Monday night burn scenario, because I feel like I'm on the losing side of that a lot. So if there's something out there that can help me take the sting out of Josh Allen getting 16 when I need to keep him to 14, yeah, I'd love to know that on my phone for sure.
As much as I'd rather beat my friend, if I'm going to lose, I'd rather win a bet at the same time, just to get that done. So generally, building off what we talked about, a lot of pain points. Any other pain points that we've missed on in the industry that really bother you guys or think that we can improve?
Obviously, the moving money, and it's getting better. Like Bettor Vision, or not Bettor Vision, BetMGM just released the new thing. So now I still have a different account in each state. So I normally bet in Maryland. I came here. I had to accept the terms for Ohio, but now it's a single wallet, right? So before I had a balance of money in Maryland. I had to deposit new money to bet in Ohio. So I like that they're finally moving it so it's a single wallet. But it's still tough across sports books, right? So they make it very easy to deposit money. They make it a little more difficult to withdraw it. And so with our odds comparison tool, you might see, the best odds for tonight's game is on DraftKings, but I've only got $10 left in DraftKings. I got $500 over here in FanDuel. I can't move that money. It's my money. Why can't I move it, into some wallet and then move it back into the sports book that I want? So that's obviously a pain point. It's going to be difficult to solve because our partners don't want to solve it. So I don't know.
Nah, nothing I can think of. I do like that idea though, because I have underdog money, FanDuel money, DraftKings money. It's I wish I could kind of just move those wherever necessary. So I think that's good. I don't have anything else to add though. I think that's a perfect one.
Awesome, guys. Any questions from the audience? That's pretty much what we want to talk about. Again, we're really happy to promote this this app that we have that combines all sportsbook, DFS, and fantasy accounts in one place. Open it up. If anyone got.
So you guys are obviously the expert in the apps. I think I have like just a few. I'm in one really big fantasy league. It's like 23-man roster, 17 starters. It's a full-time job pretty much in itself. So I just stick to that one. Told my buddies. But as far as sports betting goes, what's your guys' favorite sports betting app? As far as like being able to take out money and being able to make different types of bets and stuff like that. Because I have the two major ones, DraftKings and FanDuel, but I've never tried any of the MGM or anything like that.
I can take the first one. So FanDuel would be the easy answer for me. I think their interface is very clean and it's very smooth. No crash rates. I found like that's fantastic. FanDuel, I like that. And I think Caesars is fantastic as well. I've had no problems with them. They have competitive rates. No problems donating. Donating. It is a donation. Depositing or withdrawing money. So those two, I strong recommend on those.
I agree. As far as like user experience, I like FanDuel and Barstool a lot. I like for research, DraftKings I think has the best data. Like where you can click on the little bar graph and they have all kinds of stuff, the last 5 games and all kinds of stats in there. So I like that a lot. When it comes to like promotions, BetMGM and PointsBet send me like daily promotions. A lot of them I don't use. It's for the Women's World Cup and NASCAR and a bunch of things that I don't bet on because I don't know it. But they send me a lot of free bets. So I use them as well, but their interface, don't like quite as much.
Just one note for DFS. As far as promotions go, I think that Prize Picks does a great job when they have their $1 or they do like 0.5 points. So essentially you don't have to get 3 picks right. You just have to get 2 from there because it's like a freebie. So it's always fun to get those when they come up. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So literally, yeah, that. So when we built the app, Ohio was not legal yet. So that is like the next evolution that we're going to put that one in as well. So right now, you can still connect to other states and see what the odds are, but it's not just directly connected to Ohio. Soon though. Well done.
So if you connect your accounts, it'll work, right? It's just we're not going to get paid, right? That is kind of what it is. We've got a license here, but until we get it set up in the app, you can set like Underdog is not legal for pick'ems in Maryland, but I can connect so it doesn't come up in our app as an option. But I have an Underdog account, so I just change my location to Virginia. I connect my account, and then it works. So as long as you can make the bets, as long as you're in a state where it's legal and that app is available there, you'll be able to make the bets. They'll show up in your app, but it won't show Ohio right now. Yeah.
Great question though. Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you sticking around. Have a great rest of the expo, and we're in the booth over there, and I'm going to crack some beers pretty soon, so come see us.